hoped for during Canada's centennial year.
This is Danny Gallivan at the Montreal Forum for the first game of the final. The Montreal Canadiens are well rested after their 4-game sweep over New York, but the Leafs are weary, having eliminated Chicago only 2 days earlier. This series shapes up as a goaltending duel, Vachon versus Sawchuk. And of course, it's always a coaching battle when Toe Blake meets up with Punch Imlach. Referee Bill Friday drops the puck, and the Stanley Cup 1967 finals are underway. Montreal in their red home uniforms, Toronto in white. Right from the open show the kind of skating ability that has long been a trademark of Blake's teams. Jean Beliveau leads a 3-man rush, feeds a pass to Gilles Tremblay, but Sawchuk makes the save. The Leafs take a penalty, and the Montreal power play puts added pressure on Sawchuk. There's Dick Duff with a shot right on. Watch now for the most sensational save in the hockey game. Tim Horton circles at center, breaks right through the Montreal defense, and appears to have Vachon beaten. It's Beliveau again with Cornoyer and Duff. Cornoyer, the power play specialist, scored 10 power play goals against the Leafs during the regular season. Watch him circle in front of Sawchuk to pick up his 11, and the Canadiens lead 1-0. The Leafs come right back. Jim Pappen chases a loose puck in the corner. It's out to Larry Hillman, and the game is tied at 1-1. Incidentally, Hillman's goal comes only 15 seconds after the goal by Cornoyer. Henri Richard scores his first of the game, and now we're into the second period. Rousseau's shot is blocked. Richard goes after the rebound, but he's tied up by Marcel Pronovost. Leon Rochefort, number 25, with Bob Bond, the only Leaf player back. Rochefort gets his own rebound, but the puck bounces away. Cornoyer gets another power play goal, his 12th. And then Beliveau connects on a perfect pass from Gilles Tremblay. And it's 4-1 Montreal. Now the Leafs have the man advantage, and number 18, Jim Pappen, scores his 4th playoff goal after a fine return pass from Horton. But the Leafs are tiring, and they trail by 2 goals in the third period. Claude Provost, number 14, displaying some of his patented penalty killing. But the big gun in the third period is number 16, Henri Richard, who winds up the scoring with 2 more goals, his 2nd and 3rd of the hockey game. It marks the first time that Henri Richard has scored 3 goals in the playoff game. However, he's not the only Richard to do so. Brother Rocket accomplished the feat 7 times. With Montreal leading 5-2, Terry Sawchuk is replaced by Johnny Bower, who gives up the 6th and final Montreal goal. The Canadiens, solid favorites before the finals got underway, have now gone 15 games without a loss. Before the final series, Punch Imlach referred to young Vachon as a Junior B goaltender. However, before the second game, Imlach said, "I'm giving Vachon a promotion. He is now a Junior A." The Toronto goalie is Johnny Bower. And Bower, who didn't see much action in the semifinals, is brilliant. The 42-year-old hockey marvel stops rush after rush with some very fine saves early in the game. In all 8 playoff games to date played by the Toronto Maple Leafs, the team scoring the first goal has gone on to win. In this contest, the Leafs strike first with Bob Pulford setting up Pete Stankowski. Bower's artistry baffles Montreal. Rarely does a man over 40 possess reflexes like Bower, a man Imlach calls the most remarkable athlete in the world. In this game, the 4 Maple Leaf defensemen give him all the protection that the goalie can ask for. Hillman, Prono. Ron Ellis, a solid 2-way player, attacks for Toronto as the period ends. In the second period, Frank Mahovlich brings the puck into Montreal territory. They hold it in, and finally Mike Walton is left uncovered. Walton's hard shot finds the corner of the net, and the Leafs lead 2-0. Beliveau, Ferguson, and Rousseau lead a Montreal rush. A penalty to the Leafs gives the Canadiens a man advantage, and they storm in on Bauer. Horton and Stanley have trouble clearing the puck. Armstrong and Keon lend a hand, but the Leafs still can't relieve the pressure.
Let's go. Come on. Come on, Johnny. Come on. Shoot again. Come on.
Then, to add to their problems, Conacher is penalized for charging. Now the Canadiens enjoy a two-man advantage, but they still can't get that puck past Bauer. Horton later adds to the Leaf total, and the second period ends with Toronto leading 3-0. Bauer's most hectic moments are yet to come. In the third period, John Ferguson's stick catches Bauer in the face.
That's it. That's the...
The injury to the durable Bauer doesn't keep him from finishing the game. He stops a final Montreal surge by LaRose and Ferguson to record the only shutout of the playoffs. Toronto wins 3-0 to tie up the series. The playoffs move to the city of Toronto, home of the Maple Leafs.
Hi, it's Fitz with Slap Chop. You're going to be in a great mood all day because you're going to be slapping your troubles away with the Slap Chop. Now look, here's a potato. One slap, you got big chunks for stews. Two slaps, home fries in a second. You add a mushroom, the more you do it, the finer it gets. You don't have to switch any grades. You love salad, you hate making it. Take the stringy celery, take the carrots, salad. I love pizza too, but once in a while, get the veggies in. At least throw it on top of the pizza. This tuna looks boring. Stop having a boring tuna. Stop having a boring life. Here's a hard-boiled egg. One chop, you add the pickle, you add the green onion. And then what you can do, you can mix things together. You add the ham. You don't have time to make breakfast. You're going to have an exciting life now. Breakfast to go. You're going to love my nuts. Watch this. You can do everything in the cover. It's so easy. One finger. Kids can do it. They're going to charge you $1 for toppings at the ice cream stores. What about fruit? Look at that. Isn't that beautiful on your ice cream? It's so easy to clean. 1, 2. And pops open like that, like a butterfly to clean. Now, these other ones that you've seen in the store, you can't clean it. It doesn't open up. Bacteria gets in the food. You don't want bacteria in your food, right, guys? Forget about that. Take this Slap Chop onion with the skin, all right? This is making you cry, making me cry. Life's hard enough as it is. You don't want to cry anymore. The skin's at the bottom. Hey, look, if you want a little bit of onions, you don't want to drag out the food processor, the skin comes right off. We're going to make America skinny again. One slap at a time. When you buy the Slap Chop, we're going to give you the grady for cheese. White cheese, yellow cheese, in the container. Comes with a twister. And watch this, tacos, fettuccine, linguine, martini, bikini. Comes with 2 blades, just bang it. Fine and coarse, Parmesan. Comes with a cover, stay sealed. Put it in the fridge, take it out when you need it. The Slap Chop sells for $19.95, and we're gonna give you the grady absolutely free. But if you call now, within the next 20 minutes, because you know we can't do this all day,
we'll double the offer. Just pay separate shipping and handling. So that's 2 sets for $19.95.
here's how to order.
Call the number on your screen to get in on this amazing offer. You get the Slap Chop for just $19.95. And when you call in the next 20 minutes, you'll get not 1, but 2 Grady's for free. Just pay separate shipping and handling. Call now and get slapping.
Hello, hockey fans from coast to coast. This is Bill Hewitt. 16,000 people jam every corner of Maple Leaf Gardens for the third game of the series. They are about to witness the second longest playoff game in Gardens history, a game that won't be over until close to midnight. The evergreen Johnny Bauer will kick aside 60 shots before this game is decided. Vachon will turn back 51. Tappan, Stamkowski, and Pilford start the game for the Leafs. 88 minutes and 26 seconds later, they'll finish it. Montreal strikes early in the game. Beliveau, with 399 regular season goals to his credit, opens the scoring at 227, deflecting Bobby Russo's pass into the open net. Montreal keeps the pressure on, and Bauer has to be quick to stop Yvan Cournoyer and Dave Ballone. At 8:39 of the first period, the Leafs get a break. Larry Hillman slaps a rolling puck, and Stamkowski tips it in. It's a 1-1 tie. No further scoring in the period. Now in the second period, Armstrong and Keon move in with Mahavlich trailing. Mahavlich fights for the loose puck. His deflected shot is off the goalpost, but it stays out. Number 19, Terry Harper, covers up. On the faceoff, Stemkowski back to Hillman. Over to Papin. Papin's return pass is intercepted by Provo. A race down the ice, but Hillman gets back fast and knocks Provo off stride. Hillman on a return rush, and his bouncing shot gives Vachon a lot of trouble. Stemkowski tries to center the puck, but Provo is there to clear it down the ice. Bauer stops the drive, and now a battle breaks out in the corner with Claude LaRose and Brian Conacher trading punches. Conacher's overhand right connects, and LaRose is cut for 7 stitches.
Come on, in it!
The Leafs play their best hockey in the second period, and their strong forechecking keeps the puck in the Montreal zone. Jim Papin grabs a loose puck, and his backhand shot dribbles through Vachon's legs. The Leafs take the lead 2-1. Late in the period, a face-off deep in Toronto territory. Ferguson ties it up, and the teams move into the third period with 2 goals each.
Come on!
Beliveau facing off with Stemkowski, and the third period is underway. Both teams have good chances to score, but the goaltending is superb. The Leafs appear to be letting down a bit, and the Canadiens hold an edge in play. The man of the hour is Bauer, who's called on to make 14 saves in this period. Pulford down the left wing with Papin and Stemkowski. They keep Vachon busy, but the youngster is unbeatable. A glittering save by Bauer late in the period preserves the tie. Cornwallis breaks around Hillman, who stumbles, but Bauer slides out to Rob Cornwallis. After the game, Cornwallis used to say, "I knew he was going to beat me, and there wasn't a thing I could do about it." The game moves into sudden death overtime, the first goal deciding the match. The first overtime period features end-to-end rushes and incredible saves by Bauer and Vachon. Vachon is at his best against the high-scoring line of Pulford, Papin, and Stemkowski. Bauer stopped Cornwallis twice and Beliveau once to keep the Leafs in the game. Keon, who missed a goal with 1 second to play in regulation time, gets a pass to Mahavlich. Vachon smothers the puck. Around the 8-minute mark of the second overtime period, Toronto forces a face-off to the right of Vachon. Stanley keeps the puck in. Stemkowski's pass is off Harper's skate to Papin. Over to Pulford, who scores. And Toronto wins 3-2. Leafs lead the series 2-1.
The Nikon D5000 and its Vari-Angle LCD lets you capture stunning digital images and HD videos. Look around. Life is beautiful. Everything you've just seen was shot with the Nikon D5000.
Hi, I'm Dave, technician at Speedy Glass.
Do you see this chip? Just one big bump and it could turn into a crack.
It's best to call Speedy Glass as soon as a stone chip appears.
We can replace your windshield, but most of the time, we can repair it. We inject a special resin, and in about 30 minutes, it's virtually invisible, and your windshield is as sturdy as new. What's more, if you have glass coverage, repairs are usually free. Call us now or book online at speedyglass.ca.
Speedy Glass Repair. Speedy Glass Replace.
Your imagination and creativity guide you. But where can they take you? To a design career where companies need talented people with good ideas. Make the Art Institute of Vancouver one of the Art Institute's the first stop in your journey. We're a creative community of faculty, mentors, and students who share your passion and push you and your ideas forward to the creative career you really want. There's an Art Institute school near you. Contact the Art Institute of Vancouver today to learn more about our design programs.
13, 14, go! It's in! He's won $1 million!
Get in the game yourself. You could win a Chevrolet Equinox and $1 million. To enter, go to tsn.ca/Equinox.
Keep the good times going, starring Bud Light.
Hey, Bud Light. Looks like that giant squid's gonna ruin our party. Let me handle it. I can communicate with wildlife.
Hey, is that dude punching a giant squid? Cool.
Don't get me wrong. I like squid. They're delicious.
The easy drinking taste of Bud Light.
Keep the good times going.
The fourth game is played at Maple Leaf Gardens, and the Canadiens receive pre-game encouragement from a rabid Montreal fan. He's sure his Canadiens will tie the series, and his bell will herald every Montreal score. The Leafs open with a flurry of shots on Vachon. They hope, of course, that the Canadiens will have trouble shaking off that overtime loss, and they'll be mentally down for this game. But Vachon is not easily rattled. He makes a sparkling save off the stick of Mike Walton early in the game. Walton gets another chance, and again Vachon is in the right place at the right time. Johnny Bauer, hero of the overtime battle 2 nights earlier, pulled a groin muscle during the pregame warm-up and is on the sidelines. Sawchuk, with an all-time high of 100 shutouts to his credit, takes over in the Leafs net. But this was not to be his night. Backstrom, number 6, whips one high into the net, and it's 1-0 Montreal. Marcel Pronovo gets a penalty, and the Canadiens have the man advantage. 6 men to 5. Watch closely now as Bobby Russo's drive from the point bounces off Tim Horton, then off the side of the net. Beliveau whips the puck behind Sawchuk from a difficult angle, and it's 2-0. Fulford gets some verbal encouragement. He winds up in the net, but the puck stays out. That reaction is general throughout the Gardens. Early in the second period, the Leafs tighten things up when Walton's shot from the corner hits the stick and bounces crazily past Vachon. It's a 2-1 hockey game. But Montreal scores 17 seconds later. Richard, unassisted. Horton scores for Toronto, but Beliveau and Backstrom also score for Montreal, and going into the third period, Montreal leads 4-2. And in an effort to shake things up, Imlach sends out Eddie Shack. Seconds later, Shack and Ferguson collide with predictable results. Vachon protects a Montreal lead of 6-2 after Jim Roberts scores, making key saves on Stemkowski and Walton. The young goaltender, a second-string player with Houston in the Central League until mid-March, continues to amaze the experts with his coolness. The period ends, and the Canadiens have defeated the Leafs 6-2. The series is once again tied. Vachon receives a well-deserved salute from his teammates and the Toronto fans.
The teams move back to Montreal for the 5th game. Millions of fans throughout Canada and the United States watch the action as 3 major TV networks, English and French in Canada and CBS in the United States, beam a color telecast across North America. Both teams open up just as they finish game number 4 in Toronto. The Canadiens are in full control, and Vachon appears to be headed for another goaltending victory over Sawchuk. But under that goaltending mask, Sawchuk wears a look of determination that spells trouble for any Canadian optimistic enough to think that goals would come as easily as they did 2 nights earlier. Sawchuk, maligned and taunted in some quarters after giving up 6 goals in the 4th game, makes it clear to 14,700 fans in the Forum that when he's right, he's the greatest. He comes up with key saves on Beliveau and Cournoyer. Yes, the master is back in form. Meanwhile, Vachon is keeping pace with the veteran, and he has to be sharp to stop a hard drive by Keon, who seems to be all over the ice. Henri Richard gets a ride to the boards from Horton, but Richard keeps the puck in the Leaf end. Duff digs it out of the far corner. Rochefort is racing in. Rochefort shoots. It's 1-0 Montreal. The Leafs come right back, and Dave Keon's backhand shot is wide of the target. It's Keon again, over to Jim Pappen, who scores. It's tied 1-1. Pappen from Keon and Mahovlich with LaRose in the penalty box. There's more trouble for Vachon as the period ends, but the rookie keeps the Leafs from any further scoring. In the second period, Sawchuk makes a brilliant save on Beliveau, and Keon stick handles his way out of trouble. Here's Mahovlich with his shot, and oh, Vachon makes a spectacular catch on the rebound. Kelly gets the puck to Hillman at the point. Vachon blocks the shot, but Brian Conacher wraps in the rebound, and the Leafs take a 2-1 lead. Now Montreal has the man advantage, but their hopes for a tie are squashed by Marcel Pronovost, who breaks up the power play and scores to make it 3-1 for Toronto. Keon adds another goal, and Toronto gives Sawchuk all the protection he needs the rest of the way. The Leafs win the game 4-1 and are 60 minutes away from the Stanley Cup.
Distinct, authentic, with a storied history. This is not just a drink, it is an attitude. A straight-up approach where the brown-nosing conformers need not apply. It's embracing a chilled manner that leaves the hysteria to the bridesmaids and standing up against the sameness, blandness, and colorless. It's striving for extraordinary because, after all, who wants the ordinary? Appleton Estate. That's how I like it.
In Montreal, they just love the game.
I dreamed to play with Montreal Canadiens.
100 Years of the Montreal Canadiens, a 6-hour original production documenting the history of one of the game's most storied franchises. Own it now on DVD.
You got some sun today. I can't believe you're still alive.
Sorry I ruined your day, man.
Oh, it's not a big deal. You just gotta learn to bend your knees.
You cleared it so easy, you know.
Who do you think you are? Me?
I wish I was.
Don't be a sidekick. Eat like an alpha.
Enzo decided to start sailing tourists around Italy to forget the years he spent designing cars. Years he spent trying to compete against one car. One car that kept raising the bar for performance and handling. Well, Enzo, it's back. Introducing the new Golf GTI. Raising the bar again.
Volkswagen, das Auto.
Enterprise. Hi, I'm at the repair shop. I need to rent a car.
Enterprise will arrange to pick you up,
This is great.
drive you to our place, and get you on your way. Pick Enterprise. We'll pick you up.
Hey, I'm Andrzej Kopitar. You're watching NHL Network.
Beautiful move by Kopitar. He scores. He is one of the huge talents in the National Hockey League. He scores! What a move!
Hockey fans, this is your network.
NHL on the fly. It's on every night at 8 Eastern. The one, the only place where you get live look-ins of every game. NHL on the fly. Don't miss it.
The teams are back in Toronto for game number 6. Gump Worsley, who hasn't played since he was injured in New York 7 weeks ago, replaces Vachon in goal for Montreal. The pressure is on Worsley to turn back the Leafs and force a 7th and deciding game in Montreal. Sawchuk is tested early by Jean Beliveau, but Sawchuk wants to cap a brilliant playoff performance with one more victory. Worsley is kept busy, too. The Big M, Frank Mahovlich, tears down his wrong wing and fires a high one that Worsley turns aside. The ex-New York Ranger goalkeeper is called upon to stop 36 shots during this game. Yvan Cournoyer moves up, but Stanley and Pulford force him to turn and feed Jacques Laperriere. Sawchuk saves. Just one of 40 he'll make before the night is over. Mike Walton, the rookie called up from Rochester in mid-season, hits the goalpost. And there's no scoring in the first period. Now it's early in the second period. And Stanley gives the puck to Red Kelly. Kelly shoots. Ron Ellis races in to put the rebound high in the net. And it's 1-0 Toronto. Kaplan and Pulford almost connect to give the Leafs a 2-0 lead. But Worsley moves out to stop Pulford, who in turn is bowled over by LaRose. Now it's Dick Duff's turn to give Sawchuk a bad moment. Duff gets 2 chances, and his second shot is off the goalpost. Peter Stemkowski brings the puck out for Toronto, with Papin trailing on the play. Papin, with nowhere to go, backhands a shot in front. It's off Harper's leg and in the net. 2-0 Toronto. Papin leads all scorers in the playoffs. And the Leafs go into the third period, clinging to that 2-0 lead. They're 20 minutes away from the Stanley Cup. Imlach is getting great performances from his veterans. Here's Red Kelly moving in on Worsley. Ferguson calls for a rally, and Duff sets sail on the prettiest play of the night. A magnificent solo effort around Horton, number 7, past Stanley, 26, and Duff's brilliant goal puts the Canadiens right back in the game. With time running out, the Canadiens have to dig deep. To date, they've outshot the Leafs, but the Leafs have been blessed with red-hot goaltending and dynamic team play that has stymied the Canadiens at crucial points in the series. Sawchuk gives the fans a performance they'll long remember. Keon sends Mahavlich away, but Worsley isn't giving an inch at this point in the game. J.C. Tremblay moves up. Now there's just over a minute to play. The Canadiens strive for a face-off in the Leaf zone, and seconds later, they get it. Joe Blake pulls Worsley, and the Canadiens have an extra forward for this all-important face-off. Imlach wants Stanley to battle Jean Beliveau for the puck. Both players are experts at getting the draw, and the tension mounts. Stanley moves into Beliveau, and Red Kelly gets the puck. Kelly sends Pulford away, and there's Armstrong streaking up the right side. A perfect backhand pass to Armstrong. And the Leaf captain hits the empty net.
It's all over. The Toronto Maple Leafs have won the Stanley Cup. The Leaf players pour over the boards. They pound Armstrong on the back, and they pummel Sawchuk. Keon played outstanding hockey during the playoffs and was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy for his efforts. This team, they said, was too old and too slow, has come back to win the biggest prize in hockey history, the coveted Stanley Cup. Clarence Campbell, president of the National Hockey League, congratulates the winners as George Armstrong holds the cup aloft, a glittering symbol of pro hockey supremacy. The new champions are later saluted in the traditional way, a parade to Toronto's City Hall. It's the end of an era. A half-century of NHL hockey comes to a close with the Toronto Maple Leafs reigning as Stanley Cup champions. A new season will bring expansion. 6 new teams in 6 great cities, 12 teams in all, on the trail of the Stanley Cup.
NHL on the fly. It's on every night at 8 Eastern. The One, the only place where you get live look-ins of every game. You want all the goals, hits, and saves? Check. All the latest news and analysis? Check. NHL on the fly. Don't miss it.
June 5th, 1967. For decades, the NHL was a small community of 6 teams that didn't stretch farther west than Chicago, and that hadn't changed in a quarter of a century. Then, seemingly overnight, the NHL doubled in size, expanding its boundaries to California and landing in such exotic locales as Los Angeles and Oakland. Some of those franchises are gone now. But the expansion of 1967, brought about by the powerful force of televised sports, would change the game forever. The NHL, like most every other major professional sports league, went through many dramatic changes in its early years. Founded in 1917, the league originally consisted of 4 teams: the Montreal Canadiens, the Montreal Wanderers, the Ottawa Senators, and the Toronto Blue Shirts. The Wanderers would disband when their arena burnt down shortly after opening night. But a decade later, the NHL would expand to 10 teams, adding franchises in Boston, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit, a second team in Montreal called the Maroons, and 2 franchises in New York, dubbed the Rangers and the Americans. By the 1942-43 season, however, the Great Depression and World War II had reduced the league to 6 teams. Those teams would come to be known as the Original 6 and would make up the NHL for the next 25 years. But while the NHL remained the same, the world around it was changing. By the early 60s, televised sports was becoming more and more popular in North America, and professional athletes were becoming mainstream stars. Although it had been an early leader in broadcasting, the NHL was watching its TV contract run out in 1960. The threat of a TV deal going to a rumored rival league in Western Canada eventually forced the NHL to act. And by 1963, a new guard within the league's ownership group, led by New York's William Jennings and Toronto's Stafford Smythe, started to press for expansion. In March of 1965, NHL President Clarence Campbell announced plans to expand by 6 teams.
This is the year of the great expansion. This year, for the first time, the league will be composed of 12 teams.
There was nothing in the papers in Philadelphia about the expansion plans of the National Hockey League. I mean, as far as the papers here, the National Hockey League didn't even exist. And a banker who made the loan to our group that bought the Philadelphia Eagles was from J.P. Morgan, and he was leaving. He came down to tell me he was leaving, and I said, why? And he said, I'm going to work for Jack Kent Cooke on the coast. And I said, well, what's going on there? And he said, well, Jack has the Lakers, and he has a piece of the Redskins and all of his sports properties, and he's going to try to get a franchise, and he thinks he will, in the National Hockey League. So I said, well, what's that all about? He said, well, they're expanding. They're going to add 6 additional teams. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, what are the cities? And he railed them off, and I think Baltimore was one. And I said, well, you know, I think we'd be better than Baltimore. So I then applied for a franchise with my group and went up to see Bill Jennings, who was the governor of the New York Rangers and the head of the expansion committee, and we got it. You know, it was a process, but we made it happen.
Coming up, trying times ahead.
There was a blackout, the only one ever in the city of Philadelphia, that day. And nothing was being wired, and everything was down and out.
Hey, Mom. Hey.
Can I borrow the car?
Thankfully, everyone's okay. But did you know that even with insurance, an accident like this could result in unexpected costs? That's money out of your pocket. The right coverage could reduce out-of-pocket costs by up to $1,000 at time of claim. Now, let's go back in time.
Hey, Mom. Hey.
Can I borrow the car?
The right insurance saves you money by helping to eliminate surprise costs by up to $1,000. Confidence comes easy knowing you have the right coverage. So talk to one of our licensed insurance advisors today at 1-866-586-6605. You'll get the right advice and great rates that can help save you money on car and home insurance. Call RBC Insurance and get the peace of mind you need and the savings you deserve.
So are you on shop.nhl.com?
Yeah, Mom. Ready when you are.
Well, we need a Crosby jersey for Uncle Todd because he loves the Penguins, you know, and a Caps tee for Jeff, and a Kings backpack for Wendy since she moved, and 2 Blackhawks jackets for the twins who are now in college, a Toronto hat for Grandpa Benny, a pet jersey for Bruiser, a putter for your father, and a onesie for the baby.
Is that all?
Well, a gift card for somebody.
At shop.canada.nhl.com, you'll find the largest online selection of NHL products anywhere, all delivered in time for the holidays. Find it at shop.canada.nhl.com.
Am I forgetting anybody?
Your windshield is an essential part of your vehicle's safety system.
In the event of an accident, a poorly installed windshield may not withstand the force of an airbag. This can increase the risk of injury.
At Speedy Glass, we never compromise.
If your windshield needs to be replaced, talk to a Speedy Glass expert. Every technician is certified and undergoes rigorous training.
Our standards are superior because your safety is a priority. Make the right choice. Call now or book online at speedyglass.ca.
A year after the first announcement, Clarence Campbell laid out the blueprint for the NHL's ambitious expansion. The league had received 14 bids for new teams. It awarded franchises to Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and San Francisco, Oakland. A bid from Vancouver was rejected, largely because Montreal and Toronto did not want to share TV money. That decision caused a furor in Western Canada. But things weren't much easier for the 6 new teams.
When we went to make the application, they said, well, you have to have an arena. And we said, okay, we'll have it. And, you know, we had the mayor call and say, we've paved the way, there's no problems. We've got the site, they'll be able to do it. And we were voted in as one of the 6 new franchises that cost $2 million cash apiece. So on, I think it was June 30th or thereabouts in Montreal, everybody had to have their $2 million presented to the league, get their franchise. And I was scrambling down here. That's another long story I don't want to get into, but Wallman didn't want to be a part of it, so we split. I left the Eagles. That's another long story, but the point is, I was now responsible for getting the $2 million, and I was scrambling to put it together that day before and got it and was going to wire it up to Montreal to one of, our executive, Bill Putnam, who was up there and who was the guy that left for Jack Kent Cooke and came back to run the Flyers at the time. Anyway, there was a blackout, the only one ever in the city of Philadelphia, that day. And nothing was being wired, and everything was down and out. And we finally, so they're waiting there for the money, it's not there. We finally managed to route it through New York to get there. And the whole history of how this franchise started was amazing.
As things turned out, building the new rink in Philadelphia wasn't as difficult as obtaining the financing.
I was involved with a gentleman named Jerry Wallman at the time with the football team, and we decided to apply for the franchise, and I'm the guy who did it all. And so basically we had to build an arena quick. Actually, from the time I had the idea to the time the Spectrum was built was 16 months. The construction period was 11 months, and we got it done in time. But you know, it was quite a thing. I mean, I went to the head of city council here, who I was involved with in getting the stadium for football and baseball down here. His name was Paul Dortona, and said, what if we plunk an arena on the parking lot of what's going to be the stadium? I mean, it'll increase revenues, and parking revenues, we'll pay rent and so forth. And he loved the idea. Took me right in to see Mayor Tate, and Mayor Tate loved the idea. And he called in the city solicitor and the city finance director right on the spot and said, look, they want to build an arena. He said to the city solicitor, let's get the legal work done. He said to the finance guy, he said, figure out how much the land costs us, divide it over the length of the lease, and let's get this thing going, all in one day.
After the break, California Dreaming.
I think at that time, Los Angeles was an outpost for hockey. We had the original 6, and then the Kings came in, the first expansion in '67.
You won't find money here, and you won't find much here. But there's one place that might just be holding a treasure waiting to be found.
You've probably seen lots of ads that promise big cash for gold. But there's no one else out there who wants to pay you more for your gold than dollars for gold.
Wow.
Wow, look at this. Maybe you don't think you have enough to make it worth your time, but just this small amount could be worth up to $1,000. That could be money you can use for a trip or a flat screen TV. Dollars for Gold is simple, fast, and promises to pay more than other national advertisers. And if you find a higher price, we'll double it. That's our double G guarantee.
Call or go online now because we're increasing your payout by 30% as a special holiday bonus for your holiday shopping.
Just call or go to dollarsforgold.ca and get a free submission kit. Then send your gold in the free prepaid and insured Canada Post Express Post envelope. Dollars for Gold even allows you to track your package online so you know where it is at all times.
The process was very easy. I just took my old scrap gold, put it into a package, dropped it into the envelope, and mailed it. And within a few days, I got my money back in the mail.
Your gold goes to our refinery. There, it's appraised, and you're guaranteed to be satisfied or your jewelry is returned. Within 24 hours, we send you a check. Our refinery makes gold bullion and is a multi-billion-dollar company with 35 years of experience. Dollars for Gold accepts any kind of gold. We even accept diamonds. And we are a publicly traded company, so you know you can trust Dollars for Gold. Remember, money doesn't grow on trees.
So why wait? We're increasing your payout by 30% as a special holiday bonus for your holiday shopping. Make the call or go online and turn your gold into holiday cash today.
Call 1-800-845-8121. That's 1-800-845-8121 or visit dollarsforgold.ca.
Canadian businessman Jack Kent Cooke had established himself as a new mover and shaker in sports in the mid-60s. He had purchased the NBA's Los Angeles Lakers and a share of the NFL's Washington Redskins. But hockey was the Hamilton native's first love. And when he was awarded an NHL team for Los Angeles, he began planning a gleaming new sports palace in LA.
I think at that time, Los Angeles was an outpost for hockey. We had the original 6, and then the Kings came in, the first expansion in '67. And hockey is a foreign sport in Los Angeles, and Mr. Cooke believed that you had to have this. The same with the basketball. I think he believed in the star system, and although the Kings had a very solid team under Bob Pulford in the early '70s, they went to Detroit and acquired Marcel Dion. He felt that he had to have a star in Los Angeles. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar came over for the basketball team, and Mr. Cooke loved to have nicknames. You know, we had to have some catchy phrases. So I think some of the original players like Eddie Joyal became Eddie the Jet Joyal, and he liked to have different monikers for the players so that the fans could identify with them. They brought in Eddie the Entertainer Shack came in to play for the Kings. So there were most of the players in the early years had some great nicknames.
Eddie Joyelle wasn't the only established NHLer who would be uprooted by expansion. The new teams were stocked with players from the original 6 in the league's first expansion draft, held in June 1967. Legendary Hall of Fame goalie Terry Sawchuk went to Los Angeles.
It's all over. The Toronto Maple Leafs have won the Stanley Cup.
Maple Leaf stalwarts Bob Vaughn and Kent Douglas went to Oakland after the Leafs won the Stanley Cup. Chicago lost defenseman Moose Vasco to Minnesota, and Charlie Hodge went from Montreal to Oakland. It was also decided the 6 new teams would play in their own division. 4 months later, the NHL opened its 50th season with 12 teams. But this new league would play to mixed reviews.
So we have the franchise, you know, we have our expansion team. We're getting ready to start. We're going to play our first game in the Spectrum in a few days, and the city decides to give us a parade from the center of town all the way down Broad Street to the Spectrum. So they put us in convertible cars, and we lined up to go down Broad Street to the Spectrum, and we were going down Broad Street, and here we are in this great parade, and nobody's there. Nobody's there. I mean, I'm telling you, people were standing on the street saying, what is that?
That first year in St. Louis, and St. Louis was the late addition to the 6 expansion teams. And they got off to a terrible start. And Scotty Bowman took over as coach after about 15 games. But we only made the playoffs the last weekend of the season. And by then, interest in St. Louis, which was mild to moderate, became overwhelming, and we were filling the buildings, and the people got captured up in it, and we beat Philadelphia in a 7-game series, and then beat Minnesota in a 7-game series, and so then we were in the finals for the Montreal Canadiens. So it really did ignite hockey interest in St. Louis back then.
Attendance wasn't the only challenge during the first year of expansion.
All of a sudden, at one of our events, not a hockey event, the roof, quote, blows off, end of quote. Well, actually, it was tarpaulin, you know, covered the roof, and it left a big hole, and we could have fixed it in 24 hours. But it became a political football. They closed the arena, and we had to play our last 8 regular season games on the road. Also, we had to refund the money, which I didn't have. But the bank was so impressed with what we had done up until that time, they came in and said, how much do you need? And then, of course, we recovered the money from a very reluctant insurance company because we had business interruption insurance, which saved us, quite frankly. But, I mean, we had to play on the road to know people. You know, we went to a couple of places, and we finally ended up where our minor league franchise was at the time in Quebec City, and that's where we ended up. We still won our, you know, division.
The Minnesota North Stars, unfortunately, suffered the greatest loss of all during their inaugural season. The North Stars had acquired U.S. national team member Bill Masterton. Masterton scored the first ever goal for the franchise. But on January 13th, 1968, 4 minutes into a game against the Oakland Seals, he was checked by 2 Oakland players and fell back onto the ice, hitting his head. Masterton suffered a massive brain hemorrhage. He died 2 days later, never regaining consciousness. His death resulted in intensified lobbying for more hockey players to wear helmets. The Bill Masterton Trophy, named in his honor, is awarded for dedication, sportsmanship, and perseverance. As part of the new configuration, it was determined that the playoffs would take place within the two divisions, meaning the ultimate Western Division champion would advance to the Stanley Cup final. This was great news for St. Louis, who had picked up Hall of Fame goaltender Glenn Hall in the expansion draft. They also augmented their roster with former Montreal Canadiens greats Doug Harvey and Dickie Moore. Under new coach Scott Bowman, they would make the finals in the first year of expansion. They would repeat the next two seasons.
We ended up with good teams, and most of the expansion teams, the attendance was good. So, the people must have accepted it, but it was tough to build into good teams. Like I say, it had to be old guys or young guys, and in the original six, basically didn't lose anything, and it was two leagues, the original six and then expansion, and we would cross and play, but in the playoffs you would play in your own division. Expansion played and the original six played, and then they met.
Joining Hall between the pipes was fellow Hall of Fame goaltender Jacques Plante.
We had the best goaltending tandem in the NHL, but the way the system was devised for the expansion teams coming in initially was that there were very few quality young players made available to us, so your only option was to go on veterans, and the likes of Lynn Patrick and Scotty Bowman, we picked up some solid NHL veterans, and we were able to make a great trade with the New York Rangers to acquire Red Berenson, who became an instant star from being a part-time player with the Rangers. But we had a lot of veterans in the twilight of the career. Doug Harvey played, Dickie Moore, Phil Goyette, just on and on. So it definitely helped our club out once we got into the playoffs, because we had a lot of players who had a lot of rings and who knew how to win those type of games.
Expansion was totally unfair. The existing teams, the original six, gave up nothing. They gave up some old guys that they figured couldn't play anymore, and some young kids that they felt would never play. I think, and St. Louis represented expansion for the first few years, and I think we really represented expansion very, very well. And had it not been represented that well, I think it would have been more difficult for people to accept it.
Coming up, trouble in Oakland.
Charlie looked at hockey as something that to play with, and he didn't really know that much about it.
The 2010 Chevrolet Traverse gets you there for less. Traverse uses just 8.4 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway. And who would expect an 8-passenger mid-size crossover with better fuel efficiency than the Honda Pilot or Toyota Highlander to also have the most cargo capacity in its class? It's just as efficient on your wallet. And if you don't love your Traverse, return it. That's our 60-day satisfaction guarantee. The 2010 Chevrolet Traverse.
Hey, there's birthday cake in the break room.
So, you're growing it out again, huh?
Yeah.
What's next? You gonna get a perm? Look, just because we're partners doesn't mean we have to be twins.
Look at how many chicks you get with that thing.
Can't argue with that.
Right? You know, pretty soon, I bet people aren't going to be able to tell us apart.
Don't be a sidekick. Eat like an alpha.
Hey, Ray, I got your message. What's up?
Well, first you set up my commercial insurance.
Right.
And today, the employees got their group benefits. Health, dental, disability, pensions.
Weren't they happy?
Too happy.
Ouch. Anything I can do?
Yes.
Hey, it's the Cooperators guy!
There's no question you've got a lot of things to protect. See your Cooperators agent for all the business and group coverage you need. The Cooperators, a better place for you.
Unfortunately, the new franchise in the Bay Area was beset with problems. The proposed new rink for Oakland was never built, and after 2 unstable years under owner Barry Van Gerbig, the Seals were sold to the notorious Charlie O. Finley in 1970.
It was tough because the first year of expansion in '67, Oakland had been picked to be the best of the new expansion teams, and unfortunately they were a total flop on the ice and they were a total flop at the box office. The people that took over the ownership of the Seals had asked me to go there during that year, and I was in Pittsburgh and had a commitment there, and I said I couldn't until the end of the year. And so when we went out there, we made a number of changes. We brought in Freddie Glover as our coach, and we made a number of player changes. And we were fortunate enough our first year to go from last place to second place and go to the semifinals of the Stanley Cup. So it kind of created some interest in hockey. And the next year we made the playoffs again. We're eliminated in the quarterfinals. And then the following year, Charlie came. And I'm not sure that Charlie Finley's real interest in coming there was because he really wanted to own a hockey team. He also owned the baseball team, and he was having trouble with his lease. So Charlie looked at hockey as something that to play with, and he didn't really know that much about it. He and I had a lot of battles about how a team should be run, and like I said, eventually we agreed to disagree, and I moved on.
The veteran players on the teams had their own adjustments to contend with.
I played a long time. I was pretty near 40 when I retired, which is not really considered. It was considered gold at that time, but it was expansion, and they were looking for an old goalkeeper. They said, well, with age comes wisdom, one of the great fallacies that's ever been told. But we were doing something we liked, so I enjoyed most of playing hockey, except playing hockey. It was the great friendship we had with our teammates, and like I say, that when you stop the puck, goalkeeping is a lovely position. It's not a great position when you're letting it in.
Pittsburgh was also looking to veteran leadership. Andy Bathgate was brought in to lead a franchise mostly made up of minor leaguers. The team struggled in the first 2 years and went through many changes. Red Kelly was brought in to coach, but still, talent was thin. Unfortunately, tragedy struck in 1970 when promising rookie Michel Briere died after being injured in a car crash. His jersey number 21 was the first to be retired by the franchise. Despite the lack of success and a bankruptcy claim in 1975, the Penguin franchise survived. Their real success would come in the late 80s and early 90s, following the rise of Mario Lemieux. In Philadelphia, the Flyers had overcome some of their early off-ice challenges. Eventually, they'd pick up some players who would turn out to be useful. The team began to improve. It helped, of course, that the Flyers drafted a center from Flin Flon named Bobby Clarke in the second round of the '74 draft. It also helped that the Flyers brought in Freddie Shiro to coach the team, and his unusual approach to the game proved to be successful.
What we did is we hired our general manager and our coach a year prior. The day we got the franchise, we hired them. And they scouted the 6 original teams because there was going to be obviously an expansion draft. And there were going to be a lot of players available. And I think we did an incredible job in the expansion draft. 7 of our players played on our Stanley Cup team that we got in. You know, usually when you get an expansion draft, by the time you're a strong club, the guys that you got in expansion are mostly gone. But the guys that we got played a major role in our winning the Cup. We got Bernie Parent. He was the goaltender. Instead, we traded him to Toronto and got him back before we won the Cup. But we had Doug Favell as our backup goalie. We had Gary Dornhofer. We had Joe Watson. We had Ed Van Imp. I mean, you know, it was really a tremendous expansion. So that gave us the foundation, and those guys were with us all the way through. And when we brought in kids, you know, they all adhered to our program. And of course, you have to get lucky too. We got Bob Clark in the 2nd round of the first universal draft. I mean, a little known point is that the first 2 years of expansion, there was no universal draft. We couldn't really get the good players. The original 6 guys kept them all for themselves. And they relented in the 3rd year to have a universal draft. And that's when we got Bob Clark, and he became our leader and one of the great players of all time, and led us to the Stanley Cup along with Bernie Parent and the rest of the guys.
You've got to draft good young players, obviously, like you still have to do today. Keith Allen and Mr. Snyder, the year before I got here in the playoffs, St. Louis had really, or maybe it was 2 years before, had really physically beaten the heck out of the Flyers. They're a small team, so the Flyers went out and drafted Schultz and Selesky and traded for DuPont and drafted Bob Kelly, and all of a sudden we were tough. We were tough enough to physically play with these other teams. They couldn't rough, you know. In those days, you could intimidate other teams. So once we were tough enough to play, then our skill players could play. And you know, we traded and drafted Barber, traded and got McClish, and all of a sudden we're a pretty good team.
Well, I mean, you know, we won in 7 years. It had never been done before. And, you know, I'm quite proud of that. It was pretty spectacular. And this city is a hockey city. And it became a hockey city in the years leading up to the Cup. I mean, it wasn't the Cup, but the Cup was the icing on the cake. And we've been very successful ever since. And when you look at the success of this franchise, it's also interesting to note that when the Hockey News graded the expansion in 1967, of the 6 teams, we were voted least likely to succeed. And the reason we were voted least likely to succeed is because hockey had never succeeded at any level in Philadelphia. And one of the little-known facts is that in the mid-30s, there was a National Hockey League team in this city for 1 year. Had the worst record on the ice, the worst attendance, and went out of business after 1 year. Every minor league team that tried to make it a success in the city failed. So it was natural that they said, you know, we would be the least likely to succeed. And naturally, I was scared to death, you know, because I thought we were going to succeed. And, you know, I had put everything I owned and you know, begged, barred, and did whatever I could to put this franchise together. And I said, holy cow, you know, what's going to happen if it doesn't succeed? And so the excitement of knowing that we have a very, very successful franchise, we've been successful, we won the Cup in our 7th year of existence. I think we've been the most successful of those 6 expansion teams, several of which no longer exist, is very satisfying.
Coming up, competition in the Big Apple.
Looking at the situation there, it was really different than any other expansion or any other new team coming in, simply because we were not going to be the only team in the market.
Enterprise. Hi, I'm at the repair shop. I need to rent a car.
Enterprise will arrange to pick you up,
This is great.
drive you to our place, and get you on your way. Pick Enterprise. We'll pick you up.
all the things you want to do. All with one vehicle. The wait is over. The new Toyota Venza, now in good supply. Visit your local dealer and test drive one today.
Inside every Scotiabank savings tin is a golden ticket. Check it online and your family may win a trip to a Stanley Cup final game. You're richer than you think. Scotiabank.
Now Scotiabank customers can win NHL tickets weekly at scotiahockeyclub.com.
Hey, free tickets. Register at scotiahockeyclub.com. You're richer than you think. Scotiabank.
Do you know how many different scents Old Spice makes?
How many? Wow, that is a lot.
In the years following the 1967 expansion, the NHL would bow to public pressure and award a third Canadian franchise to Vancouver. The Canucks came in along with Buffalo for the 1970-71 season. The game would enjoy success in its two new cities. The same couldn't be said for Long Island and Atlanta. They were added 2 years later, partly to block the threat of the upstart new World Hockey Association.
Looking at the situation there, it was really different than any other expansion or any other new team coming in, simply because we were not going to be the only team in the market. The New York Rangers were a pretty well-established team. They were probably, if not the best team in the league at that time, certainly the second best. Very strong team with established stars, obviously, you know, and with Rod Gilbert and Jean Rattel and Eddie Jackman and Brad Park. They were serious Stanley Cup contenders, and one could see that they were going to be for the next few years. So, you know, the chance of us really competing for the first few years were pretty slim. Second of all, obviously, the Rangers were the most dominant team PR-wise, is well established. And the structure of the league was a lot different then. There were only 14 teams. We were put in the East Division, whereas the Atlanta Flames went in the West. In the East Division, and obviously the Montreal Canadiens, the Boston Bruins, it was a much stronger, tougher division. So it's pretty clear to me that where we were going to end up for the first couple of years. And in coinciding with that, the draft then was a 20-year-old draft. You knew that in the next few years, coming out of junior hockey in Canada, and there was some really outstanding talent coming. And so I simply sat down with the ownership and I said, look, we can go piecemeal and try and you know, bring in an old guy here, an old guy there, and create some. Or I said, we can just go for the entry draft and spend our time, effort, and money in looking down the road 3 to 5 years. And when the Rangers will be a much older team and we'll be a much younger team, and our talent, if we do a good job in our drafting, obviously then we felt we would draw in the New York market, that there were enough obviously in that market that we would be a decent draw even though we weren't winning. And so that's basically the approach I took for those reasons. It was a little tough. We only won 12 games the first year. And every city we went into, I remember the headlines, here come the hapless Islanders, and it was a little tough to take. The expansion draft was not a very generous one. I think there were only 3 established NHL players we got out of the expansion draft, Eddie Westphal being the most obvious. But the second year, we made a couple of moves and the team improved. I brought in Al Arbour as the coach, and we knocked 100 goals against off our record, which was a big thing. And defensively, we started to get better. And then obviously, we did a good job in the entry draft. And second year, we drafted Denny Potvin, which is obviously the first big step. And that's the way we went. It was a tough couple of years to get it off the ground, but once it started to take shape, it was pretty exciting.
Tonelli to Nystrom. He scored! Bob Nystrom scores the goal. The Islanders win the Stanley Cup.
It was very exciting. Just 8 years after that dismal first campaign, the Islanders would go on to win their first of 4 straight Stanley Cups. Coming up, the WHA merges with the NHL.
I'm very pleased to report that the board supported that recommendation, and we can proceed to an expansion of the National Hockey League.
As reliable as the people who drive them. Honda, official vehicle of the NHL, and hockey parents everywhere.
Before you hit the greater outdoors this winter, get into Source for Sports for the right advice and the hottest styles from Columbia. Plus, join the Source for Sports test team for a chance to win your purchase. Only at Source for Sports. We know our stuff.
To conquer even the worst winter roads, stick with Blizzak, the official tire of winter. For drivers who want to get the most out of their cars, it's Bridgestone or nothing. Now buy a set of 4 Blizzak tires and get this DVD featuring the NHL's greatest moments.
Introducing new Solstice 5 gum. The gum that starts off hot and finishes cold. New Solstice 5 gum. Hot meets cold. New Lush 5 gum. At Chris sensation. New Lush 5 Gum. Stimulate your senses.
There are some things that might surprise you, like discovering that Canada Dry Ginger Ale is made from real ginger. It's a nice surprise. Canada Dry Ginger Ale. Real ginger, real taste.
The NHL Network. Hockey fans, this is your channel.
The league continued to change through the 70s and 80s. Kansas City and Washington were added in 1974. 5 years later.
And as I say, I'm very pleased to report that the board supported that recommendation, and we can proceed to an expansion of the National Hockey League for the 79-80 season of adding 4 new teams. There are a number of conditions that have to be met, but the committee and I think the board is quite confident that our friends in these cities will be able to meet these conditions, and that come next season, we will be a league of 21 teams.
The NHL absorbed Winnipeg, Edmonton, Hartford, and Quebec from the WHA.
Cement ball, Gretzky is up there. Gretzky! Score!
There were also a number of franchise relocations. The Flames would never take in Atlanta and were moved to Calgary in 1980. The Kansas City Scouts would move to Colorado and then New Jersey, where they would find a home.
Russell a shot, picked out by Lindbergh, rebound front, score!
The NHL existed as a 21-team league for 11 years.
Reset, he's in, scores! And look at the look on his face, that first NHL goal.
In 1991, the league would welcome the San Jose Sharks. Then, Ottawa and Tampa Bay would join a year later.
Peter Klima got to a loose puck in the order zone, and it's a 3-0 hockey game.
In 93, they continued their move into the Sun Belt by adding a team in Anaheim. The Mighty Ducks raised the bar in entertainment and increased hockey awareness in Southern California.
Joe Sacco tries to drive towards the net, shoots and scores! Joe Sacco goes right to the net.
The New York Islanders weren't the only team that Bill Torrey helped succeed as a new franchise. In 1993, he was named president and general manager of the newly formed Florida Panthers.
We had a unique bunch of players. I just saw Mike Huff here the other night at the dinner for Roger Nielsen, and we were talking about what a unique group of players they were. They all pulled 100%. They worked extremely hard. They were very, very good. That was a very good defensive team. We did not have a lot of goal scorers, and obviously it's tailor-made for Roger Nielsen because that's the kind of game he liked to play. And with Mark Fitzpatrick and John Van Beesbrook in goal, we had outstanding goaltending. We were a hard team to play against. I mean, from an energy, work ethic, never had a team that worked harder. And the pride they had, and they just would never give up. And we started in the playoffs. I think beating Boston gave a big emotional lift to this team. The Bruins obviously were heavily favored, and we beat them. And it wasn't like it was a fluke. We beat them, you know, in a good, solid effort. And I gave our team a big lift so that when we moved on to Pittsburgh and we played Mario and Jaromir Jagr, obviously, we were huge underdogs, but we shut them down, literally. And Roger did we just, the whole emotion that our team got on a roll there, it was a great ride. It was a tremendous thing for hockey in Florida. The new arena that we now have and live and play in Sunrise, which is one of the best new buildings built. It's an outstanding facility. We never would have gotten the financing for that done had it not been for that run. So it was a huge thing for the franchise.
The NHL awarded two more franchises, the Atlanta Thrashers and the Nashville Predators, to close out the decade.
I've never been to Nashville before in my life, and I had heard all of the stereotype descriptions that everybody else had, that it was, all it was country music, and of course I knew it was a non-hockey market, so there's a couple of strikes that are against your starting, but Craig Leopold, the owner, had a vision, had a beautiful new arena, and he certainly sold me on the potential of the city, and everything you do in life is a little bit of a leap of faith, but I think that's great. And they really want you to succeed there. I mean, they're proud that NHL hockey is there in Nashville, and they want their city to grow and to be recognized nationally and internationally. And I think the NHL is a little bit of a vehicle to do that. So we've had nothing but positive experiences of being in Nashville.
Walks in on Vokun, rebound, oh my, Vokun again, and another save as he makes three outstanding saves in succession.
Despite the previous failure of the Atlanta Flames, the NHL awarded a new franchise to the city in 1999 called the Thrashers.
Jersey cutting out of the corner to Holik. Oh, what a save! Davey Rose without a stick, and he slides across.
In 2000, the league then grew to its current 30-team format, adding a new franchise in the Twin Cities called the Minnesota Wild and another in Columbus, the Blue Jackets.
Shot, Roberts, rebound, Tugna. That's not fair.
Coming up, the NHL stands up to its critics.
So the naysayers, say that hockey has, a very small base of loyal fans. That's a bunch of bull. We have millions of fans.
This NHL Network program is brought to you by CompuWare, global application performance partner of the NHL.
Keep the good times going, starring Bud Light.
Hey, Bud Light. Looks like that giant squid's gonna ruin our party.
Let me handle it. I can communicate with wildlife.
Hey, is that dude punching a giant squid? Cool.
Don't get me wrong. I like squid. They're delicious.
The easy drinking taste of Bud Light.
Keep the good times going.
Hey, Mom. Hey. Can I borrow the car?
Thankfully, everyone's okay. But did you know that even with insurance, an accident like this could result in unexpected costs? That's money out of your pocket. The right coverage could reduce out-of-pocket costs by up to $1,000 at time of claim. Now, let's go back in time.
Hey, Mom. Hey. Can I borrow the car?
The right insurance saves you money by helping to eliminate surprise costs by up to $1,000. Confidence comes easy knowing you have the right coverage. So talk to one of our licensed insurance advisors today at 1-866-586-6605. You'll get the right advice and great rates that can help save you money on car and home insurance. Call RBC Insurance and get the peace of mind you need and the savings you deserve.
Remember when you first fell in love? How shiny everything seemed, how new. Remember how proud you were, how you flaunted your love and bragged to all your friends. Then things changed. Shiny became dull, and pride turned to embarrassment. When the love is gone, move on.
At Wireless Wave, we believe you should love your phone. So when you fall out of love, come see us. With the HTC Dream from Rogers, we'll give you every reason to love again.
TSN2. More of what you want. More of the best. More games, more sports, more choice. TSN2.
The NHL Network. Hockey fans, this is your channel.
While the jury is still out for some in regard to expansion, it has certainly created new hockey fans in unforeseen places. Who would have thought back in the days of the original six that cities like Tampa Bay, Anaheim, and Dallas would be home to NHL teams? And not just any teams, but Stanley Cup winning teams.
I'm in favor of expansion to cities that make sense and to communities that make sense. You know, the hockey people, which I'm a hockey person, but when I say the general manager types, oftentimes are against expansion. But I think from a business and league point of view, it's a good thing because it expands the sport.
The Blues were an extremely hard-working, solid, defensive type hockey team who struggled at times to score goals like all the expansion teams did. But you know, from there you had to build your team up so that you could compete evenly with the existing teams. And it took about 5 years, but finally the expansion teams started to catch up to the existing teams at that time. And then you looked at the Philadelphia Flyers when they won back-to-back Stanley Cups in the early 70s.
So the naysayers, you know, say that hockey has, you know, a very small base of loyal fans. That's a bunch of bull. We have millions of fans in the city, and we know what we have. And so it's done a great thing for the city, but more important, it's done a great thing for us because we've got great fans.
June 5th, 1967. A day that changed the game.
I'm Sidney Crosby. You're watching NHL Network.
Crosby gets the goal! Can I get a witness? From the seat of his pants, what a goal by Sidney Crosby! And you can slap me, silly Sidney!
NHL Network, the home of hockey.